Good afternoon, Facebook. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is our 7th Facebook Live Q&A featuring small business innovators. If we haven't had a chance to meet before, I'm Lindsay Keisler, President and CEO of the Chamber of Catawba County, and it is certainly my privilege every day to work with business owners who I have just been completely inspired by throughout the last several months as they've navigated the COVID-19 disruption. This series in particular is featuring several key individuals who have done an extremely great job of pivoting and shifting their business models to meet their customers' needs. And so through this, we've had a privilege to speak about all of the interviews have ended up being thematic, from branding and marketing to 3D printing and innovation and the future of work. We have heard a little bit of everything. So I encourage you to go back and view the replays of all of these interviews and see what you think and drop your comments in on it, or ask a question, and we'll make sure that those get answered. So again, those of you watching, thank you so much for hopping on here. Those of you that are catching the replay, welcome, and we're glad that you found us. So today I have the privilege of having a special guest. This is Alan Jackson, who's the founder of a lot of things across our community. But today we're going to be talking a lot about Jackson Creative, which is his business. But first, before we get to Alan and we get to know him a little bit better, I want to thank our sponsor. Jay Brown with Jay Brown Realtors is on the call with us, and they have been so generous to help us launch this series in the month of May. So Jay, welcome. Thanks again.
Hey, Lindsay. It's good to be back. I hope everybody had a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. We get to see Alan Jackson and meet him, talk to him today. I'm excited. I'm a big fan of what Alan does in our community and as a business, as a local entrepreneur, big fan of him. So I hope you guys are excited to hear from him, and good luck with the interview today,
Alan. Thanks so much, Jay. We really, again, appreciate your sponsorship. But those of you who are watching, I encourage your engagement. So Facebook really likes, and Alan would tell me this, Facebook really likes when we have comments and likes and shares and hearts and wow faces. So would you help us out today? Would you share this video? Would you start a watch party? Maybe if you can hear us, why don't you go ahead and give us some hearts and some likes and maybe some wow faces. And just to start off our comments, I've got my Facebook right here. To start off, why don't you, to make sure I can see comments that come through, why don't you give me a quick comment? So drop an emoji in the comments on how your day is going so far. So how about is there a smile? Is there, hey, we have a little bit of sunshine. That's good news. Okay, I'm seeing comments come in. So thank you all very, very much. I want to encourage you to engage throughout this interview. If you have a question for Alan, like I said, I can see the comments. So go ahead and throw a question up there, and I'll make sure we can weave it into our interview today. If you like something that Alan says, if it inspires you, go ahead and respond, because again, Facebook likes that, and more people can see and hear from what Alan has to say. So without further ado, I want to welcome Alan Jackson. Alan, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, good afternoon, Lindsay. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great.
Good.
I appreciate you taking the time, and thank you in advance for what you're going to share.
Sure.
I want to give a quick bio first, and then we're going to go right into our rapid fire Q&A. So Alan Jackson is the strategic director of Jackson Creative. They're a marketing and communications company providing custom video, web, social media, and podcast production services. Jackson Creative also manages The Mesh, a network of audio and video podcasts, and has a research division called Jackson Insight. They conduct customer and employee surveys. Alan works with clients to manage their online and media presence, employee and customer satisfaction surveys, along with producing several original online shows. So again, welcome, Alan, and thanks for being here.
Oh, thanks. This is great. I love what you guys are doing with this series. So I'm happy to be a part of it.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. So as we've begun every interview so far, we're going to do a
Mhm.
little bit of rapid fire Q&A to get to know Alan in 5 minutes or less. Are you ready for
Oh
this?
boy. Yeah, I guess so. Let's give it a shot.
Okay. All right. All right. What does innovation mean to you?
Um, Innovation means finding a need and solving it. So whether it's for one person or for the entire world, it's just finding a need and finding the quickest and easiest way to solve it.
I like it. If you could jet set anywhere in the world, where would you go?
Oh, I've always wanted to go to Italy. That's one country I've never been to. And yeah, I'll definitely do I love Italian food. So I'm going to go to Italy. That's it.
All right. So speaking of food, what's your favorite comfort food?
Like Southern comfort,
Southern,
yeah.
like it must be Southern. Yes.
Okay. I love fried okra. That is my absolute favorite side dish. And does shrimp and grits count as Southern comfort food? Is
Yes,
that okay? Good.
absolutely.
Then I'm shrimp and grits, fried okra, and a little banana pudding on the side, and I'm good to go.
And some sweet tea.
Well, I've had to kick the sweet tea habit a few years ago. It was a little too much, so I'm strictly on sweet tea. But I'll do everything else though. So
I like it. I like it. I like it. All right. So what's one thing that you want to accomplish before you retire, Alan?
well, I don't ever plan on retiring first off, but before I get that far along, producing a documentary. So that's kind of my big dream goal eventually is to produce my own documentary.
I love
I don't
it.
know what the subject would be, but
Okay. I was
something.
going to ask.
No, I don't have a subject yet. So if anybody's got a good idea, let me know. I'll be happy to explore it.
Okay. Name a piece of technology you wish existed.
So I want there to be grass that you can grow in your yard that only grows a certain height and then stops. Seriously, that's
It
mowing the lawn.
doesn't have the plastic sheen look to
No,
it.
no, no. It has to be real grass, but it has to just grow like, I don't know, 3 inches and then it stops. So
Should it like die in the winter, have that effect as well, or
nope,
should it
nope.
stay green all year?
Evergreen, year round. That's
Love
what I
it.
want technology to come up with. So
Love
let's
it.
get on that. Yeah.
Love it. All right. If you had a superpower, what would it be?
Probably super speed. I have too many things I want to do and not enough time to do them. So if I could do it double speed, I'd do that in a heartbeat.
Like it. If your life were a movie, what type of movie would it be?
Boy, it depends on who you ask, I guess. I guess a documentary, just because I like documentaries and that's kind of what I want to do. But I like to be behind the scenes on a lot of things. So maybe one of those behind the scene documentaries of the making of or something, that would probably work pretty well for me.
Would Suzanne say you're a romance movie ever?
If she's not watching this, I'm gonna say yes. My wife would absolutely say romance, but she's probably watching, so she knows the truth. Probably not so much.
All right. Your favorite TED Talk was on what subject?
So there's a TED Talk about body language that I always found really fascinating, kind of the science of body language and the impression it gives off on people, the instilling of confidence based on your posture and where you stand and how you stand in a meeting. So I always found that really fascinating and try to remember that quite a bit. So.
And if our viewers aren't familiar, I often call Alan the godfather of TEDx Hickory. He was definitely instrumental in starting that powerful movement in our community.
Yeah, we've had fun putting that together. That's been a great event.
And it's been great to support it. So thanks for that privilege as well.
Sure.
All right. If I gave you $5, what would you buy?
Does $5 buy anything anymore? Okay.
Hey, it does buy a gallon of gas.
It actually buys a few
like a
gallons
gallon
right
and a
now.
half. Yeah.
I was gonna say you get a couple gallons. Dunkin' Donuts large hot black coffee, and I could probably get 2 of them for $5, which will probably do me for the morning. So yeah, that's my favorite coffee. I can't do those. Can't do those high end Starbucks ones. I get to give me good old Dunkin' Donuts any day.
I'm a D&D girl as well.
Absolutely.
All right, a topic that fascinates you.
Virtual reality.
Me too.
Yeah, love virtual reality. So love the idea of it. Haven't quite figured out how to use it in everyday life yet, but we're working on it.
If you could pick up a new skill in an instant, what would it be?
I would love to be able to play the guitar. I can't play any musical instrument. My son inherited some skill for that, but I can't play anything. So if I could do anything in a snap, yeah, let me play a guitar. That would be awesome.
Love it. What's one thing you can't live without?
You know, these AirPods I got a couple months ago, never thought I would need them. And now I cannot live without them. So I live and die by these things every day.
Nice. Early bird or night owl?
If you had asked me a couple of years ago, I was a night owl. I've definitely shifted to more of the early bird in the last couple of years. So I'm in bed at a nice early time, unfortunately nowadays, but bright and early up in the morning.
All right. So speaking of coffee, your D&D or your Tasteful Beans or whatever, your Taproot, whatever you prefer.
Yeah.
I know you're a coffee drinker. So how many cups of coffee does Alan Jackson consume in a day?
So I could tell you 2, but the problem is I'm using these things as my containers. So, you know, it's a little more than your standard size cup.
We need to find you like a Yeti size big gulp for your coffee.
Yeah, exactly. I've got like 2 Yetis in my office and they normally both stay pretty full. So, yeah.
And then your step tracker would probably yell at you during the day because you need to get up and go to the coffee pot.
Yeah, no kidding.
All right. What's one of the most random facts about you?
I don't even know if you knew this, Lindsay. Did you know I was in the movie The Last of the Mohicans?
No.
Mm-hmm. I had a part in that movie. I was a French soldier. I was in a couple of the battle scenes. So I got to spend like a whole month of a summer out there on the set back in 92, 93, I guess. And
Now, was
yeah,
that
if you
Gibson?
watch the film, I can tell you exactly the parts I'm in the film. You can see me and I'm very, very clear in one shot. So.
And that's Mel Gibson, right? Did you meet him?
No, that was Daniel Day-Lewis.
Okay. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
terrible. Sorry.
I was also his stunt and body
ahead.
double. I was also his stunt and body double throughout the film. Little known fact. Not many people know that.
Love it. What was the last podcast you listened to? I think we froze, Alan. Oh,
What?
I think we froze.
Did we freeze on my back?
We froze.
Hello?
You're back. We're back.
Am I
We're
back?
All right, we're back. All right.
Okay,
So
I don't know what happened.
It's okay. What was the last podcast you listened to?
I listened to probably one of my own, Country-ish with John Reap, one we do here for the local Hickory-born comedian we produce here every week. So had to listen to that latest one this morning to test it out.
All right. So when you're not at work, which is probably unlikely, but when you're not at work, where can we likely find you?
Well, normally I would say at the movie theater, but I haven't been able to do that in the last 2 or 3 months. So I don't know. I'm pretty much here. I'm like right here in this seat just about all day long. So either here or at home, that's about a place. Hopefully they'll open up before too much longer.
All right. So describe entrepreneurship in one word.
To me, it's a necessity. I mean, I feel like it's essential right now. So
I love it. Well, hope someone learned something about Alan Jackson that they didn't know. I certainly did.
wow, that was it, right?
That's it. That was the rapid fire. You
that was
survived.
a lot of questions. Okay,
You
good.
survived.
Thanks.
You survived.
Yeah.
And I'm with you. Entrepreneurship is certainly a necessity, and I think it's definitely a necessity for people like you who are driven. I don't think you could work for somebody else, right, Alan?
I did for a while, and you know, I did sell a company and kind of worked with another company for them for a while, and it wasn't my cup of tea. I get it. I mean, there's a lot of people that's a good environment, and I wholeheartedly applaud that. I just think, you know, some people it's not their thing. They want to do their own thing, and I like the fact that every day I'm working on about 5 or 6 different projects and getting to have fun doing it. So yeah.
And it's also certainly a necessity for our community. So I thank you for what you do. I thank you for, and again, those that don't know Alan so well, I touched on a little bit, founder of TEDx Hickory, founder of Foot Candle Film Society, founder of Jackson Creative, the Jackson Group, Jackson Insight, you name it. Alan has his hand in a lot of different things that truly build community in Catawba County. So thank you for that.
Sure.
So I mentioned a little bit about Jackson Insight, or Jackson Creative. Why don't you go ahead and give the viewers a little bit? What do you guys offer?
Sure. Well, we started out years ago. We could try to follow where the communication technology is these days. And, years ago, it was all video production. That was pretty much our bread and butter, shooting a lot of custom videos, marketing, training, educational videos. We still do a lot of that, but we really have seen the business, obviously, as you're all probably aware, move to how do we distribute information and media online. So really what we specialize in is working with clients that have stories they want to tell, messages they need to share, and they want to use video, audio, graphics, other ways through all the different online channels we have to get that message out. So it's not really advertising. We don't really focus on ad placements and all that. It's more about creating interesting content and then helping clients use it and teach them on how to get their messages out there for people to see. So whether it's websites, podcasting, streaming video, live broadcast video, social media management, all those things, it all fits together and it all uses the same kind of strategy for communicating. So that's really where we are right now. That's what we focus on doing.
Well, our organization has experienced what you guys have to offer in a very personal way. As we worked directly with you guys for almost a year to craft our new brand as an organization. Mm-hmm. So not only did we collect customer feedback and understand perceptions, and also understand perceptions of those that aren't actively involved in our organization, collecting all of that data. And then you guys helped us to craft our messaging and who we are and our value proposition and our brand statement. So, crafting it, but also then helping activate it, because that was the biggest piece, is activating that message, right?
Right. And a lot of people, that's where I think it's really kind of fun what we do, because I get to exercise both sides of my brain on a daily basis. My background is actually in statistical survey data research, conducting a lot of employee and customer satisfactions for a lot of organizations. We had a business that did that for about 30, almost 40 years. And so I was able to bring that to also the media and the development and the creative side. So a lot of people, like you said, Lindsay, will create their messages, but if they don't really understand who they're trying to reach, they don't understand what people are looking for, they don't always understand their audience or don't understand their customer base, that's where we can kind of bridge that gap. So conducting focus groups or online surveys to help understand people's perceptions and what they think of an organization, but then be able to customize the message on meeting those customers' needs, really fitting that together. It's a nice balance. So it's something I love looking at data, love looking at survey results, but then figuring out how can our team bring that to life in a new creative way.
And Alan, who knew 3 months ago when we rolled out our new brand that we would have such a wonderful opportunity to activate it through COVID-19, yes. Showing how this organization is relevant and valuable even when we can't gather physically, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It was very interesting timing, that's for sure. It's and it becomes even more important now for people to focus on, I think, their branding and their image, because, you think about the fact that, and again, I'm not speculating on what our society looks like 6 months from now and all, but I think the overall idea of people getting together face to face in person is going to be structured and limited and changed in some way. So I think our online virtual presence and how we look and sound and feel to people who find us online becomes even more important, because for some people, that's going to be the only way they can contact us or talk to us if they're not able to do so in person anymore. So I think it's an interesting time to be looking at that. We've seen a lot of our clients really ramp up their communication efforts during this time.
Well, Alan, talk a little bit more about that. How have you seen your clients or customers or businesses in our community adapt their means of communication to meet their customers?
Well, I think like what we're doing right here with Zoom and Facebook Live and some of these live broadcasting capabilities, that's number one. And I mean, the great thing about Zoom, Facebook Live is anybody can do it, and that's awesome. But there's also, I think, as the chamber knows and other groups, there's also sometimes some art into making sure that it's put together correctly and communicated correctly out to people what the purpose of these meetings are, and to make them look and sound as good as you can as well. So that's something that we really focus on. We have a studio here in our facility that's really kind of geared, I'm not in it at the moment, but it's really geared towards that more one-to-many kind of communication, one person communicating to a much broader audience at one time. So we've seen that really on the upswing. Podcasting is something that we were always pretty passionate about. I think there's a huge audience and market for it, but now people are seeing a little more value to it. And that, okay, if there's a way I can communicate and have it be heard by a much larger audience without me being able to travel, without me being able to go to events or seminars or workshops as much, this is now a way to do that. So those are really the areas we've seen the needs increase, and they all incorporate video and sound and other things that we've been working on for years. So it's kind of that's where we've seen a lot of the clients' needs really escalate in the last several months.
I think something that hasn't changed through this pandemic in the way we communicate is the fact that there's not one silver bullet, right? I mean,
Right. Oh yeah.
business is truly, first of all, understanding how your customers prefer to be communicated, through what mediums do they find you, by what methods? Is it written? Is it video? Is it audio through radio or podcasting? What exactly is the mediums or the means in which your customers can find you? And then I think it's probably a little bit of everything these days, right?
It is. Well, I've always said that the last 10 years has probably been the hardest time to market and advertise, because it used to be in previous generations, you always had one, maybe two primary channels of ways you communicate. Used to be the newspaper, then it was TV and radio. So between those three, that was kind of your mass communication method. If you wanted to let somebody in the community know of an event going on, the newspaper was the number one way to do it. That's just not where we are anymore. You've got, a half dozen social media networks, you've got live streaming channels, you've got podcasting, you've got websites, so many different channels. So trying to connect them all together and make sure your message is consistent across all of them, and you're meeting the customers where they want to be communicated with. That's the biggest challenge. And because for every person I can point out that still says they read the newspaper, there's 5 others who say, well, I get my news from Facebook. I get my news from email. I get my news from this live YouTube channel. So there's just still so many different avenues. Trying to connect the dots and get consistent messages out that are uniform and share the message you want is still a huge challenge. And that's really where we try to help clients piece it all together and find the best avenues to use.
So I'm sure there are a lot of business owners watching right now, and maybe they're like me at times, or they feel a little overwhelmed with what is the best medium or method to choose. And I understand that it's probably a mix, right? And so what advice would you give them? How can they determine what are their primary methods of communication be? And how do they determine that?
That's a really good question. And I wish I had a really easy, simple answer for it. I mean, a lot of times it's just a matter of listening to your customers. I mean, I think, talking to them and finding out, look, how do you prefer to receive information? What makes the most sense for you? Is my customer base one that they just want to go to a website and have everything at their disposal on a website and not have to talk to anybody human? Do they prefer chatting, text messaging? Do they prefer video? Are they a big video user? I think trying to do some polling, some surveying, some kind of quizzing of your customers to see what their primary vehicle is. But also, and I hate hedging the bets like this, but I think there's also just a matter of saying you kind of need to hit all of them. And luckily with technology, it's actually fairly affordable to do so and relatively easy if you got everything tied together. So it's very possible you could have a great social media presence that also trickles over to email, that also trickles over to live video, and you're sharing the same message and you just are hitting all the different channels you need to. These platforms and services are changing every month. So, trying to keep up with them is a challenge. And what we really try to look to do with our customers is say, all right, let's try to find the right avenues for you. But we're also going to be keen on trying to find as many avenues to use at one time without overtaxing you. So you maybe have an announcement to share. How can we get that one announcement on your website, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, in a podcast, all in a consistent way? So it's not you having to do 6 times the work. You just create your one message and help get it out in the most consistent way. So
what are I know there are apps out there, or, some type of platforms, software, where it can help minimize the time for say you don't have an in-house marketing department, say you're the chief of everything, as sometimes we all can be. What do you recommend in helping them maximize or minimize their time, but maximize their impact?
So there's a service I use that I recommend a lot of people to consider, and there's a lot of variations, so people may have different preferences, but one that I use is called dlvr.it. It's deliver.it, but it's DLVR. There's no vowels. It's that whole Web 2.0 thing where they don't want to use vowels in their name. But dlvr.it is a web service. You can use it for free, up to a certain number of channels. And what it will do is say, look, I want to take anything I put on my website as a blog post or a news item. I want it to automatically post on my Facebook page and automatically post on my LinkedIn channel, Twitter, Instagram, all the other ones you can link to it. So the idea is that you create something one time and it gets propagated to all the places, multiple locations. So that's what tears a lot of people up, is feeling like I've got to go hop into 5 or 6 different places and make the same post, when really the goal is minimize your time, focus on the best message you can, and then find the ways to propagate it through all those channels automatically. Now, there's some trade-off with that. Some of these services like Facebook and others don't always prioritize those automatic posts. You've got to have some give and take with it. It may not be a completely hands-off approach, but it will definitely help share a lot more information a lot quicker, and a lot more consistently for you.
Let's talk about podcasting for a moment.
Yes,
because
absolutely.
I know you love it, and of course I love it. I'm a huge fan of the Mesh.
Good.
And
Thank you.
and I actually was on it on Friday on the Entrepreneur Exchange.
That's right.
So,
you were.
Anyway, for those that aren't as familiar with podcasting, give a general overview of podcasting, and also the value of the content, but also the value of even using it as a marketing opportunity.
Yeah. So podcasting is great. And the biggest misconception people have with podcasting is they think it's just you record something on audio and put it up on your website. And that's not really it. A podcast is a ongoing series. It is designed to be something people subscribe to. So I kind of equate it to like you have your TV and you have your cable box where you can go into the DVR and say, I want to record this show. And every time a new episode of this show comes out, I want it recorded. That's what a podcast is, but it's all online. So the idea is you find a show you like, you subscribe to it, and every time you open up your podcast app on your phone or go to that podcast app on your computer, that new episode of that show is going to be available for you. So it's meant to be episodic. It's meant to be ongoing information, not just a one-time presentation or one-time audio. So with podcasting, it's great is that, we can be publishing right here in Hickory, North Carolina, in our studio down the hall. And those podcasts we create get pushed out to Spotify, Stitcher, Apple iTunes, Google, all these other places that feed podcast audio. So you can really reach a very, very large audience, or you can narrow it down to only have it be focused on certain geographic areas. And, they're free for people to listen to. That's the one thing. So obviously building out advertising models where you can get sponsors and advertisers is kind of key to make them really work. But what we find a lot of companies doing is using them to become kind of thought leaders in a certain field. So like you mentioned, Entrepreneur Exchange, a show we do here in partnership with the CVCC Small Business Center. And they come in once a month and do the show about helping entrepreneurs with education and resources. It's not really selling anything. And that's really what podcasts are great for, is that they're not seen as a selling medium directly. It's an indirect selling medium. So you are selling yourself as a personality, as an expert, as a thought leader in a certain area. And we find that, people are responding to really well to that, a lot more than a hard direct sales approach. People want to hear other people talk expertly about subjects and ideas. And then if they're so inclined, they're going to reach out and contact that person or that business and want to try to initiate some sort of, relationship. So that's what we're really trying to help build, is relationships with between future customers and some of the really, really talented people we have in this region.
It's really neat. I guess I'm fairly new to podcasting. I guess it's been the last 2 years, and I know that it's been on the rise in terms of downloads and those that listen. But it is super easy. How can someone find the Mesh?
Yeah, so the Mesh is a free online network of podcasts. We have about a dozen shows right now that we put on. It can be found at themesh.tv. That's the web address. So THEMESH.tv. So the idea is it's audio and video podcast. We have a couple shows I'm a co-host on. So if you haven't gotten annoyed enough with my voice in the last 30 minutes, you can go and listen to other shows I help do. One is a film review show, kind of naturally. And another one is a technology discussion show I do with my brother. My brother's out in Portland, Oregon. So we do a show kind of cross-continental there, talking about technology for your home and family. And then we have several other shows that other people come in and host and do. So are all free. You can subscribe to any of them through the Apple Podcast app or the Google Podcast app or Pandora or Stitcher or Spotify, wherever you listen to things a lot. So.
Well, thanks for that. And hopefully those of you that are watching will look up the mesh.tv. I know also podcasting equipment is not that expensive, but you guys have it and you've got a professional studio. And so you mentioned other people that host various shows that are on the Mesh. And my understanding is they can also host their own show and rent studio time as well. Is that the case?
That's true. So we've got, kind of run the gamut. We can do full production of a show where somebody just has an idea and they're just really good at talking about a subject and they want to do a show around it. We can do it top to bottom, recording, editing, posting, submitting. We have some clients who they already have their own podcast. They just need a studio to come in and record it to get good microphones and good sound on it. So we have that as well. But my favorite thing to do is somebody who just says, look, I've got an idea for a show I think could be kind of cool. And let's talk about it and see if it's something that could work out. We've got a lot of shows that we just are helping produce on our own because we feel like it's a good service to offer out to the community, or we think it's got some great potential down the road for sponsors or supporters or whatever it may be. So yeah, we have the facilities here. We have a network set up to post all the shows and put them out to all the different channels where people could find them. So, but you're right. I still wholeheartedly, no matter what, if you're interested in doing a podcast, do one. Because even with a nice microphone on your home computer, you could record something really good. And it's relatively inexpensive to get it hosted and put up somewhere. But again, we're happy to help provide those services for someone who doesn't want to get too deep into it. They just want to focus on the content and let us figure out how to get it out there and make it sound good. So
I want to shift our conversation. The last two, as we begin to wrap this up, COVID-19. Clearly has been a disruption for the way we do business. And I know you guys included, right, have had to adapt your business model, the way you conduct business during the past several months. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So probably the biggest thing for us, I mean, fortunately, a large share of our business is stuff we do online, and my team all works remotely right now. I'm the only one in our office building. So I've been roaming the halls very lonely for the last 2 months in this building while everybody else works remotely. But even despite that, we have a studio that obviously was hosting a lot of people in-house. We have moved to where we can record podcasts and other audio programs remotely from anywhere people may be. So several of our shows right now, the hosts never set foot in the studio. We've got it set up to where they can be remotely piped into the show from wherever they may be. The other thing, obviously, we still do a lot of filming, video production, shooting. That's all been kind of on hiatus for a while. We keep waiting to see when we feel like we're at a point where people are okay with a crew of 3, 4, or 5 people being out filming and shooting things. But, what we've seen is just a lot of companies saying, look, if we're going to make the best use of this downtime, let's focus on our message. Let's focus on what we're doing. I've had a lot of doctors and people in the medical community that are not primary care hospital. They're more specialty physicians saying, look, we're normally too busy to worry about our marketing, but right now we have some time. So let's focus our energy on that. So we've seen our work really shift away from the on location, on set to more internal communication improvements for clients. But it has been a change. I miss being behind the camera. So we look forward to getting back out sometime and doing that.
Well, as businesses are returning to work, right? We are now in phase 2 in North Carolina. as they are shifting from this more idle state or behind the scenes 100% virtual state, moving back towards the physical and trying to reopen safely. Excuse me. What Nina is making herself known.
Wow,
She sounds
she's
a little
upset about
vicious.
something.
The wagging tail doesn't give her away. She's not very vicious. But anyways, as I was saying, I'm about to talk about noise, which is ironic. But what would your recommendation to those companies be as they're entering? They of course need to let their customers know that they are reopened for business and that they're safe. Just give us your recommendation from your expertise on what you would leave them with if they're debating on their next steps.
Well, mine's a little more strategic and thinking longer term about things. I mean, we've learned a lot in these last 2 to 3 months. I think we've all kind of gone through a crash course on how do we do business when we get thrown a curveball like this, and something we have to adapt to. And I know a lot of businesses are doing a great job of that short-term strategy. We've kind of crafted, okay, how are we going to get back open again? And how are we going to serve our customers the way we used to? But I hope we can all incorporate some of the things we learned during this little interesting time to think about even longer term strategies for our business. I hope a lot of businesses will now look at, hey, look, let's make sure we have a great online presence, for example. If we didn't before, let's go ahead and keep building that out and make sure that's there and strong, because God forbid, something like this happens again, or we go through similar situations. I think we can use it as a learning tool more than anything. So I really get encouraged when I see businesses who are taking some of the strategies they've incorporated these last 2 to 3 months and figuring out how can we roll that out long-term? How can we make that something of an ongoing thing we do with communication, instead of just something that, oh, good, we're past the issue. Now let's turn it off and go back to the way we used to do business. I think we see a lot of opportunities, and I'm trying to find some positives in this whole thing. To me, the positive I can pull out of it is maybe we learned a few things that we can incorporate long-term as well. So if you didn't have a great mass communication strategy for online or other non-in-person communications, and you've had to kind of put something together these last few months, please try to keep that going, not to take the place of in-person, but to be a supplement, because I think there's still going to be a lot of people over time, no matter how open we are still going to be a little hesitant about a lot of in-person meetings for a while. And I think the more we can be set for that and have learned from this situation, the better we're all going to be in the long run.
Really, really good advice. Alan, I want to thank you so much for being my special guest today. I thank you
This is great.
For sharing your expertise and your knowledge with those that are watching. Appreciate your partnership as well. Thanks for the work that you've done on behalf of our organization.
Can I just say shameless plug for you guys here. I have been so impressed with what the Chamber's been doing over these last few months during this very, very unprecedented time. I think from a communication, outward reach, programs like this, this is the kind of thing that really we needed to be doing during this time. And I'm glad the Chamber's taken such a lead in doing it. So thanks for everything you and the rest of the Chamber team are doing right now. It's great stuff.
Thank you, Alan. It means a lot. It means a lot coming from you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, sure. I
want to invite you all, those that are watching, we have another Facebook Live Q&A this Thursday, this time at 11:30. I have the privilege of interviewing Christy Osborne, with the owner of Small Cakes. So you guys, she started her business right at the beginning of the COVID-19 disruption. But she has a drive-through, cupcake drive-through. Who doesn't love that? So we're going to hear about her. What is it like being an entrepreneur who's starting a business during COVID-19? So if you want to hear from
Lindsay,
Christy,
can I change my answer from before about what if you gave me $5, what I would get?
Oh, what?
I would go get one of the Small Cakes cupcakes. Absolutely, they're delicious.
So. Amen. And she now has those like cupcakes where it's like the holes that just with icing and goodness. So so join me on Thursday at 11:30 with Christy Osborne, the founder and owner of Small Cakes here in Hickory. I want to thank J. Brown Realtors again for being our sponsor. And again, Alan, I want to thank you for your time this afternoon. So again, thank you everyone for for tuning in always. If you liked what you heard today, we encourage you to share this video and like and share often. We appreciate it very much. So we're going to sign off.